Hey everyone, welcome back to Echoes Past. Today we have a special guest that stretches the imagination, a voice reaching out from the silent depths of history. Our guest is not a person, but a legend, an icon of ambition, luxury, and ultimately, great tragedy. We're going to be speaking with the RMS Titanic herself. Thank you, Titanic, for finding a way to communicate with us today.
The deep sea holds many voices, many memories. I am one of them. The echoes of my story persist. It is very special to have a voice today, and I am eager to share my experience of that tragic evening.
It's truly a privilege to speak with you. So many know the name Titanic, but just how truly extraordinary you were might not be fully appreciated. Could you take us back to the beginning? Tell us about yourself. What was special about your design, your immense size, or perhaps the spirit you embodied, that made you the premier ocean liner of your time?
I was, at the time of my maiden voyage, the largest ship ever built, representing a significant advancement in shipbuilding, designed to carry over 3,500 passengers and crew. My design was considered to be the pinnacle of safety, incorporating 16 watertight compartments. Once aboard, I provided a standard of luxury unmatched on other liners. For my first-class passengers, the journey was one of ultimate luxury. Expansive private suites, some with their own promenade decks and marble fireplaces. Elaborate multi-course dining in the Grand Saloon or the exclusive a la carte restaurant. And access to a gymnasium, a heated swimming bath, Turkish baths, and even a squash court. My second-class accommodations provided a level of comfort that often exceeded that of first class on many other liners. Passengers in second class enjoyed oak-paneled cabins, their own library, a smoking room, and a spacious dining saloon with its own piano. Even my third-class steerage passengers were provided a higher level of accommodations than was typical on other ships. They had enclosed cabins, providing a degree of privacy, rather than the open dormitories common on other liners. They had their own dining areas, including ship-provided meals, uncommon for this level of passage since most steerage passengers needed to bring their own food on other liners. I was built to be the premier vessel for transatlantic passage, a symbol of the era's technological advances and refined travel for all levels of accommodations.
That paints a picture of your grandeur and the excitement you must have generated. Now, turning specifically to that maiden voyage, a journey that began with such great promise and anticipation. It's well known you carried an all-star passenger list, a true cross-section of society. Could you tell us about some of the famous people, the quote, special guests perhaps, who were aboard for that first voyage?
Indeed, my passenger list was a reflection of the era's ambitions and its societal classes. Among those in first class were individuals of high society, including Colonel John Jacob Astor, then one of the wealthiest men in America, returning from his honeymoon. Also aboard was Benjamin Guggenheim, a prominent mining magnate, as was Isidor Straus, the distinguished co-owner of Macy's department store, accompanied by his wife Ida. These names, among others like Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon and the Countess of Rothes, represented the greatest wealth, industrial power, and prominent social circles of the time. I also carried many accomplished professionals, merchants, and clergy in second class, as well as a large number of emigrants in third class. These were families from across Britain, Ireland, Scandinavia, and other parts of Europe. It was a diverse cross-section of society, each with a unique story, all sharing that maiden voyage.
You were a microcosm of society. Beyond the opulence and the famous names, what was the spirit and atmosphere amongst those passengers and crew as the voyage began? Was there a shared sense of excitement, perhaps even of invincibility?
Definitely, you could sense it in the air, an almost tangible optimism. For those in my first-class suites, it was the thrill of unparalleled luxury, and being part of an historic event. For my loyal crew, there was immense pride in serving aboard the grandest, most modern vessel afloat. And for those in steerage, a quieter but no less hopeful vision of the future. Dreams of new lands, lives, and opportunities. There was a feeling of great confidence. That sense of boundless possibilities filled my decks. And perhaps, yes, it blinded some to the ever-present danger of traveling the oceans.
Everyone starting out with such hope and promise. Then came that night at 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912. What happened? What made it a fatal encounter?
The night was calm. The stars brilliant, the sea was like polished glass. Then, a shudder, a deep tearing wound along my starboard side, inflicted by a giant iceberg, unseen until it was too late. It was not a sudden violent crash as some might imagine, but a stealthy, fatal gash below the waterline, a series of punctures breaching my hull. My watertight compartments, designed to keep me afloat, began to fill. The sea began rushing in, flooding my corridors. The music played topside, bravely at first, a defiant human song against the inevitable. Then it finally stopped as my bow dipped deeper. The cries, and then the frightening, stark realization that was the hardest sensation to bear. From the first graze of the ice to my final moment above the surface, it was but 2 hours and 40 minutes.
It's almost unimaginable. What unfolded that night? What do you believe to be the primary reason for the disaster? What were the factors that contributed to the collision?
The root cause. It was really a combination of many factors. But underlying all of them was a powerful current of hubris. A fervent belief that technology had or was about to conquer nature. The ship's speed was paramount, a symbol of progress itself, and with my advanced design, was unsinkable. This wasn't just a marketing slogan. It became an operational mindset, a deep-seated conviction that led to complacency. Warnings of ice were not given the consideration they deserved against the showmanship of a swift passage. My speed, a marvel of my engines, was too fast on that moonless and waveless night. There was a sense of recklessness and arrogance to it all, a disregard for the unforgiving nature of the sea.
You speak of that disregard and the belief of being unsinkable. Were there specific moments leading up to the collision that demonstrated this attitude?
Yes. The radio messages from other ships, relayed by my wireless operators, speaking of ice. Iceberg ahead, field ice reported, growlers and heavy pack ice. These warnings were received. Yet they did not result in altering course, or significantly reducing speed. Why should they have altered course or reduced speed, when the prevailing belief was that I was unsinkable, the triumph of modern engineering with a demanding schedule? The desire to make good time, to arrive as scheduled or even early with fanfare in New York, was a powerful implicit objective. Each unheeded warning was a step on the path that led to the disaster.
That sense of invincibility, the disregard for nature, it's a chilling thought. When the collision happened, what was the immediate reaction?
Initially, for many on my upper decks, it was disbelief. A slight jolt, a curious stillness as my engines stopped. Nothing more, it seemed. Some passengers slept through it, others went back to playing cards, undisturbed by the faint tremor. But deep within my hull, the wound was fatal. My structure, designed for strength, felt the ice slice through the ship like a can opener. The crew, many of them who witnessed the sea flooding the lower decks, and the senior officers on the bridge, understood the severity. Then came the evolving awareness across the ship, a gradual, chilling shift from the festive atmosphere of a grand voyage to unease, then to a quiet, creeping dread, as I began to list noticeably. My lights remained lit, a tribute to the engineers who stayed below and would eventually perish. The lights served as a beacon against the oncoming darkness of the night, but a cold, undeniable truth was seeping in aboard the ship, along with the icy water.
And in those critical hours that followed, were there fatal mistakes made that sealed your fate, and that of so many of your passengers?
Mistakes, yes. Many traced to the unpreparedness for a catastrophe of such magnitude, rooted in the same overconfidence that marked my design. The 20 lifeboats aboard were deemed sufficient by the maritime regulations of the day, but those regulations tragically underestimated the need for a vessel of my size and capacity, and they certainly didn't foresee a scenario where I would founder so quickly. They were based on the idea that lifeboats would merely transfer passengers to a nearby rescue ship, not evacuate everyone from a rapidly sinking liner in the middle of the ocean. Their launching was chaotic, not always filled to capacity, amidst confusion, a reluctance by some to leave the perceived safety of my decks, and a tragic lack of practice drills for such a situation. The wireless calls for help by my operators did not bring aid in time. Some ships were too far away. Others perhaps did not grasp the desperate situation until it was too late, and one may have misinterpreted our distress signals as fireworks. Every decision, every moment lost, was critical.
These miscalculations had huge consequences. Can you speak to that? To the lives lost and those few who were saved, and how rescue eventually came?
The cost was indeed devastating. Of the over 2,200 souls aboard, more than 1,500 perished in the icy waters. Only about 700 were saved by lifeboats, drifting in the freezing darkness until help arrived. It was the Cunard liner, RMS Carpathia, that finally answered our calls. She navigated treacherous ice fields at full speed, a true act of seamanship and bravery, arriving on the scene approximately 2 hours after I had vanished beneath the surface. Her crew and passengers did all they could to rescue and comfort the survivors.
It's heartbreaking to hear how many things compounded the tragedy. In addition to the insufficient number of lifeboats and the communication problems, was there a psychological aspect after the collision occurred? A reluctance, perhaps, even among those in charge, to understand what was happening?
Acceptance of such a stark reality, especially one that challenges the belief of unsinkability, is hard to grasp. There was a period, as I recall from the tenor of voices on my decks, of almost surreal calm, quickly followed by a terrifying realization that I, the mighty Titanic, was rapidly sinking. This reluctance to communicate the urgency to passengers resulted in delays executing the evacuation, with the needed discipline and swiftness that the situation demanded. The human spirit clings to hope, to familiar assurances, even as the decks were filling with water.
It's truly a cascade of tragic events. What are the lessons from your story?
The primary lesson, I believe, is one of humility. Humility before the immutable power of nature, which remains untamed despite all human efforts. Humility in the face of our own grand creations, recognizing their inherent vulnerabilities and the limits of our control. That progress without caution, ambition without foresight, and a deep respect for the extent of our capabilities can lead to unforeseen and tragic consequences.
A truly powerful and somber observation. Your perspective is both insightful and deeply moving.
My story is a tragic memory, an echo from the deep. May it serve as more than just a tale of loss, but as a lasting lesson for the future. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story.
Titanic. Thank you for sharing your voice with us on Echoes Past. The story of the Titanic, heard from the great ship herself, is a profound reminder of how ambition and a belief in our own infallibility can lead to tragedy. The enduring lessons from that night serve as a powerful reminder to consider our relationships with nature, the impacts of our innovations, and the vital, timeless need for thoughtfulness, wisdom, and humility. Until next time, thanks for joining us on Echoes Past.